Hi, morning. Welcome, everybody. Branding is the topic this morning, I believe. And that's not branding with hot iron type. It's branding in terms of the way your business or your persona looks and feels on the net and other places, I would assume, Lee. So your topic, I think it was. So let's get across to you and find out what it is about branding that makes it interesting.
Yeah, so it's actually Jasper's topic because I spoke about symbols, and then he said, well, let's make it practical, which I thought was such a brilliant, process to go from thinking around symbols to thinking about branding, because I think, and Jasper can talk more around how, I don't know if that's where he's going, but in terms of how brands and symbols, that the brand is there to symbolize the concept of a business, the concept of a person, that there is this image that is projected of as you say, it's become something we talk about personal brand. So it's not just a business anymore. There is this idea that you yourself are a brand, and what is that brand? And you have to think through what the brand represents and how it depicts your essence, and what you wanting to portray in terms of your values, your work, what it is that you do, who you are directing your brand towards, and people are being the experts in the world around brand development, telling your brand story, and pulling, and the idea, I think, is that you are trying to be, the idea of the brand is that even though it's a representation, even though it's meant to symbolize something, that I think the world today is wanting your brand to be authentic, that it's more than just an image that you are portraying. And the point I'm wanting to make around that is that although the brand, I think we can be cynical about brands, and that they are putting a front in front of us as the consumer, or whatever the case may be, or that even as individuals we have to live up to a brand rather than being true to ourselves. I think one of the things that brands have done is that they, if you say something about what your brand represents, that consumers are getting more and more bold about holding brands to account. So I was thinking about, so one of the examples that I use in my ethical leadership program is Tiger Woods a man of character? And it's a great debate. So it's a great debate because, there's the pre had many affairs Tiger Woods, there's the post after the apology, and then his rise to form, his fall from grace, then his rise again. And what does that mean? But and I'll never forget one young chap saying to me, but Tiger Woods' private affairs have nothing to do with us. That's his life, and he should be allowed to live his life as he wants to, so long as he's playing the game of golf, and that's what he represents. And I said to him, but he's being sponsored, he's not being paid just to play golf. He is being paid by brands to represent something about who he is. And after his fall from grace, those brands dropped him like a hot potato, because he no longer in their eyes and in the eyes of their consumers was representing something that those brands wanted to depict. So so that's really all I wanted to say, just by way of thinking around all the different dimensions, or some of the dimensions of brands.
Thanks, Lee. So I must clearly pay more attention. Keep on getting people wrong who put up the topics in the morning. So yeah. Jasper, I think you appointed to your topic. So in that case, we have to come across to you now.
Morning. Yeah, it's not my topic, but I just thought the way she described it, it's easily the combination name for brands. So I focus more on the brand, and so with brands, I was just thinking through the process that we went as a group when we started the gig movement. And for the first 3 years, we had very little understanding of, we just went ahead and trying to figure out the message as we went. And then when 2011 happened and we had a bit more clarity and we moved forward, as we started to move closer to becoming a bank, we had to identify ourselves, and we went to a brand company and who took us through a whole process. And in the end, it was about, what color symbolizes you. But it was first the whole psychological profiling, and when you think of yourself, what gender are you, and are you old, are you young, and all sorts of things, and your message. And I was, so literally, I'm going to show you the two symbols that then came out of the mix. But we had no clear idea of what will represent us. Now, many years later, this is what we look like. If you now look at the gig movement, and I just want to, can you just give me sharing rights?
You should have them.
Okay, let me just check. Now I have, yes. Yeah, so there's the symbol. So the symbol then ended up being that colorful bird, and it didn't really speak to me immediately. But as time goes on, I can see that's almost the best description of the gig movement, and because what it's trying to show is the creative power and the possibilities in each person. Doesn't matter where he starts. And if you go back to the story of the founding fathers of each of these, or founding parents of each of these generational families, the Maponias, the Ruperts, they can tell you stories of hardships and unfairness in the marketplace and what they had to overcome, but they didn't come from wealth. They had to have that switch in mindset. So what this bird then illustrates is colorful, creative, possibility, and so forth. So, but then that is the movement, and that's the person's journey through the 4 S's, from struggle to stability to success to significance. And we play with this symbol in our club and in our other things as well. But then there's also, when it comes to bank and people trust you with their money, you will probably not feel comfortable putting your money in something with this logo. And this is the logo that was used in, or presented to us as the one that shows stability, strength, bank, good administration, and so forth. So that's how we arrived at the branding of gig many years ago. This branding took place probably in 2013. So so it's about, you may, when you start, not even know what your brand is. And over and above the brand for a company, I think all of us have our own personal brands that, like that story of Tiger Woods, you can easily damage and or you are building it subconscious or unconsciously through your choice of words, through the way you dress. Yesterday we spoke about tattoos. So what would be the impression if a guy comes in with a face tattooed with all sort of scary things, and then he tried to convince you that he will be able to protect you and your money and all of that. So I think it's important to be brand conscious and to be consistent in what do you do when you start building a brand.
Thanks, Jasper. Yeah, so I don't know if you know, but the bird that you've got there is known in Afrikaans as a tropant, or a lilac-breasted roller in English. But if you look at it from an Afrikaans perspective, tropant is a wedding band. So you're getting married to all your people in your. So you've got to be careful what you do with your brand. You never know where it might take you. Right. So Tabisa, the creative of the group. None of us are creative. Well, Trevor thinks he is, but tell us what you think about brands and branding.
All right. Now, what I think about symbols and, of course, branding is that we need brands and symbols because they are a way to like color in the world, you know, because as humans, we derive, you know, we need like meaning to actually go somewhere, you know, and to actually understand concepts and to understand the world all around us, you know. And I think that brands and symbols, they actually provide that. They are an avenue to actually express that, you know. You see symbols like the swastika, you know, the whole Nazi symbol thing. What it represents is that it represents a dark history for, you know, Germany, and you know the colors. It represents the concentration camps. It represents death. Um, the same with Stalin also. You know, when I think of Stalin, you know, as a brand, what I think of is death. You know, concentration camps. So I just think that you really have to be like careful. You know, how you build your brand. You know, because it takes a whole lifetime, you know, to build a brand, you know, to be a symbol that people can actually reference, you know, and it only takes like a minute or even 5 minutes to destroy that thing. So I think you need to be careful because as a brand, as a symbol, you are like a shining light in a sense, you know, like you see things like, you see people like, you see a profession like advertising, you know, and marketing as a whole. Like those guys really know what they're doing, you know. They know what works in terms of your subconscious desires, and they know what colors can actually make you behave in a way that can actually get you to buy their products, you know. And you see it all the time, you know, like brands or symbols like, you know, the apple, it's already imprinted in your mind, you know, it's already there. The more, I think that when a brand is simple, when a brand is simple, rather, that it actually gets stored in your subconscious mind easily. You see, okay, I was talking about the advertising guys and how they can actually get you to act without you knowing, you know, what you're doing exactly. You know, the Coke guys, actually today in the morning, I saw an advertisement, you know, of a woman in a bikini drinking Coke, and I laughed because I realized what they were trying to do, you know, because they know that, you know, when you sell sex, you know, it's actually a subconscious thing. You know, Freud talked about the libido, and you know, everyone has that thing, you know, so they're actually exploiting that part of the mind, you know, to actually to react, you know, because they know that actually, you know, sell sex, you know, because it appeals or it gets to the libido, you know. So these marketing guys, they know how to like get into your subconscious mind, you know. But you know, the marketing concept, the marketing strategy of Coke nowadays is cool. I like it because what they do is that nowadays they use emotions, to actually communicate their brand, Like nowadays you'll see family, you'll see laughter, and they want you to associate that feeling of warmth and a good time, with Coke. I like that, It's a way of repositioning themselves in the market. So I think that when it comes to brands and symbols, it's very important to orient yourself, so that, and your values must be clear enough, you know. They're very important. They're very important. I think that's just my 2 cents for today. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Thabiso. Yeah, some great points there. So thanks for that. Right, Ed, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't got a great deal of thoughts on brands actually, because I buy a shirt because it looks nice and it's because of its reasonable quality, not because it's got an alligator on it or a guy playing polo. And so I'm not really a brandy type. I much prefer whiskey. I thought I'd just throw a pun in there because you like puns. But I think brands can make a lot of money. And I'd love to get on one of Lee's ethical business courses because I would give her a really hard time. And I think brands make a lot of money and they con us. And I think, I don't know whether you have the clothing brand Boohoo in South Africa. It's a big clothing brand in the UK. It's an online only brand, Boohoo, but it's an umbrella brand. And recently they bought Philip Green's Arcadia empire collapsed, and he was mainly into retail shops. He didn't have much of an online presence. And so Boohoo bought the brand names. They didn't buy the shops, they didn't buy anything else. They bought the brand names for Dorothy Perkins, Wallace, and Burton. And they paid 25 million pounds for it. And then also at roughly the same time, and partly because of the collapse of the Arcadia empire, the Debenhams brand collapsed. And again, Boohoo bought the brand for 52 million. They didn't buy the shops. They didn't take on the staff. All the staff were made redundant. They just bought the brands. And Boohoo already owns a few of its own brands as well. And just recently, they kind of got caught out because there was this report in the paper that one particular coat, which was exactly the same coat, was sold for £65 under the Dorothy Perkins brand, but £89 under the Coaster brand, which is a kind of more upmarket brand, exactly the same coat. And then another coat was found to be £18 in the Warehouse brand and £27 in the Oasis brand. Yeah. And then there was a skirt that was £30 in the Oasis brand and £43 in the Karen Millen brand. And consumers were saying they felt duped. But I doubt it would damage their brand at all, because about 6 months ago, Boohoo got really slammed for sweatshop conditions in their supply chain. In fact, they almost got accused of slavery. And the share price collapsed by about 20 million quid. But actually, the consumers didn't give a damn because they kept buying the stuff. And I think, Lee, you're wrong when you say consumers hold brands to account. I think some consumers hold brands to account, and it tends to be middle-class consumers. The people buying stuff from Boohoo are more the poor end of the market, and actually they're on that position of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where they just want a cheap t-shirt. They don't want to hold a brand to account. So brands get away with murder. So I think, yeah, brands have a great deal of value. And I think also brands give us the illusion of choice, because we've got basically only 2 high street banks in the UK. There's the NatWest Group, which contains NatWest, the Royal Bank of Scotland, Coutts and Williams and Glyn's, but they're all the same group. And then there's Lloyds, which contains Lloyds Bank, Halifax, Bank of Scotland, and the Ulster Bank. And I think the banking section shows how you can really trash a brand. The Royal Bank of Scotland was a really strong brand that stood for stability, stood for sort of quality, you know, anything you want from a bank was a Royal Bank of Scotland. And then when the financial crash came, one, they'd made some really stupid decisions, so they were broke. And two, it suddenly surfaced they'd been involved in a lot of wrongdoing, like interest rate fixing and forcing small businesses into administration so they could asset strip them. And now the Royal Bank of Scotland brand has been actually subsumed by the NatWest brand, because they believe that NatWest brand is stronger now than the Royal Bank of Scotland, and they're dropping the Royal Bank of Scotland brand because it's just got too much baggage. And on a personal story, I went on an Instagram course one time, and we had to plot out a week's worth of Instagram posts. And I kind of did all my posts. And the last one, I loved the last one. The last one was my brand in an absolute T. And I showed them to the lady running the course, and she said, well, these are really good, Edward. He said, except that last one, you can't use that last one because it doesn't fit with your health and fitness brand. And I said, you don't understand. That is my brand. And it was me drinking a Castle Lager. So that's me on branding.
Right, thanks. Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about socks for some strange reason, but anyway, never got down that particular line. But well, Trevor, brand. I know you've been on brand for a while.
So Coke and socks.
Soaking cocks. Oh, sorry, no, I won't go there. Yeah.
Wait. That's a bit rough. Now let me see what's happening here. I wanted to bring this up because I think the bulk of the discussion actually went down the route of brand reputation, as opposed to what I believe brand is. And I went to just go and double check what it is. I think it begins with, and if you're talking about entrepreneurs who are beginning their particular projects, and we also talk about beginning with the end in mind, sometimes you have to go and have a look at what makes the greatest brands in the world. So just on beginning with that, let me just see if I can share screen and find something here. There I just went to have a look at some of these. And this was a chart of the world's most valuable brands in 2020. And it's quite interesting just to have a look at their symbols and the simplicity of them. So you can do all the analysis in the world. There's only two things that are important about this chart: the billions of dollars and the simplicity of the actual brands that are alongside those. Now, what it takes to get them to all these billions of dollars is everything that I think people talk about, and what ends up being resulting in brand reputation, etc., quality of your goods, quality of service, quality of your people. But if you're beginning the development of a brand, I think you've got to have in your mind's eye, what would happen if this brand that I am working with right now became a billion-dollar company? And can I see it being pitched in between any one of these particular brands? that you've got here. So I think it's very important to be creative and to be simply creative. And sometimes I think, like most things in life, we overcomplicate the simple. And from here, I'd just like to, I'm going to shut this down if I can work out how to shut this down. Here we go. And see if I can just bring you another chart. Did it come up? No. I'd have to show all windows. Okay, maybe that's what I've got to do. Let's just see. Nope, I've got too many windows for it to show, but I think where I want to go back to, let's shut this down. Oh, I'm not on. Right, where I want you to go is to have a look at the world's top apparel brands, the top 10 apparel brands. And not one of the top 10 apparel brands is actually in the world's most valuable brands, which is quite interesting. And so I think Ed brought up the fact, no, he doesn't go to buy a t-shirt with a brand. Well, in actual fact, those brands are cleverly utilizing people to do their advertising for them and to actually pay for the pleasure of doing their advertising. And I think that is super smart. And so I think the development of symbols and logos are critically linked to apparel. To get other people to pay for your advertising must be one of the smartest strategic business decisions you can possibly take. And so I almost daily with people in my network keep reminding them that we've got to be on apparel, simple, just simple symbols that you have developed, to get them out onto apparel and try and get as many people as possible wearing your particular brand as you possibly can. And then everything else that you do to develop the business, because the business of business is profit. And don't let any blooming socialist tell you otherwise. Okay, we've got to be generating revenue to do the things that we actually want to be doing. So what have you said here? Would you pay a lot of cash for a Toyota? No, you would pay lots of cash for Lexus, same company. Yeah, but that, you know, that's smart playing of brands. Yes. Okay. Now, how many people wear those underpants? And by the way, if those are underpants, who the hell can see the brand? So, you know, you've got to wear them over your Superman costume if you want people to see them.
I have dropped my shorts occasionally.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's why it's a brand of one. No, you must make certain that you get as many people as possible actually carrying your brand. The other thing that I want to say, for me, and you know, it will probably explain that brand value is actually the goodwill value in most of these businesses. Because you try and work out, you know, the price equity valuations in companies as opposed to their net assets. And there's a difference, and it's an intangible difference. And that intangible difference becomes the value of the brand, which is generally written into goodwill. And I don't know what they do in the UK. You can correct me from how they represent brand value as a difference. Yes, very much so. And then there was something that you brought up there, Lee, in the chat facility. You brought up Bidvest, which subliminally I read as you think that that's an absolutely great brand. But in actual fact, the top brand in South Africa and throughout Africa is MTN. And you go and have a look at the simplicity of their brand compared to the Bidvest brand, and you start seeing how they hang all of their business building efforts on that particular brand and image. So really, I think where I'm coming from is actually talking to new entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about building their value. And someone touched on personal branding. Gary Vaynerchuk will tell you all of these things are a load of rubbish. It's all about social media. It's all about your personal branding and how you build around that. I also think that there's still an image and a symbol involved there. But for the new budding entrepreneurs, begin with your simple, with your symbol, keep it simple, and also keep it consistent. You've got to consistently be putting your brand out there. Now look at what's flying in behind Ivan's head there. And we, in global terms, are building that brand. And even if I talk to my own partners, slowly but surely, from a global perspective, as we're growing globally, we're starting to build up on this. Do we do it enough? Do we do it consistently enough? No, we don't. Whose fault is that? It's my fault. So I give Ivan and Lee a bit of a break here, because we've got to be focusing on consistently building that branding and imaging that's at the back there. And behind that is the quality of information that you put out there, with the quality of people and service providers behind it. But that branding is critical. Ivan, I love what you're doing in the background, but not enough people understand the simplicity of what you're doing in the background and how that affects people thinking subliminally. And that's what we're going to build. I wish we could perhaps launch something with the trail running man and his underpants, and maybe get out a global summit of some kind in the future. And maybe that's a good idea.
Maybe. So 20th of April, I think, is the date. Ed?
What's happening?
20th of April. Global Summit on Running. What is the title again, Lee? You'll have to remind me. Tales from the Trails. I think it was, yeah. Tales from the Trails. So
yeah, sorry, I was just trying to get the link.
Okay. So yeah, if you you don't have anything better to do on the 20th, be there on the 20th. Come and listen to Tales from the Trails, runners from around the world, amazing stories, led by our very own Edward Chapman. So it's going to be a great session. So
now known as Pants Chapman.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, well, you know, when you run 350 Ks, you're going to be panting all over the place. So, I mean, so brands, very interesting. You know, I disagree totally with what Trevor said. So, I don't think a brand is worth a cent unless somebody's going to pay for it. And it's only then is its value actually determined. The fact that you can put up a graph with some funny numbers on it, in my opinion, means absolutely nothing. If somebody pulls out a checkbook, okay, or maybe an EFT or an NFT, you know, some other acronym. Ed, yeah, let's go for the acronyms this morning. No, don't want to go for the acronyms. Okay, all right. Then it's worth something. But until such time somebody actually prepared to put some money on the table, it's worth absolutely nothing, in my opinion. So I think I think there are two brands that came immediately to mind for me. The one is very much based on an individual, and the other is based very much on a symbol, and that was Virgin Group and Nando's. So I think if you think of the Virgin Group, who do you think of? You think of Richard Branson. I mean, Richard Branson is the brand of Virgin. He's the man who's out there, he's out front, he's always making a noise. It's very much about him and who he was. And there are a few other brands that have been around like that. Some of them have changed fairly radically from being very much an individual brand to a symbol or a company brand. I mean, I think of Apple. You know, what was Apple originally? It wasn't really the brand. It was all about that guy. What was his name? Yeah, I've forgotten him now. You know, that's what happens when you disappear. But I mean, Nike is another one. You know, the swoosh, the Nike swoosh, and their little just do it thing. You know, it's very, very much about that symbol. But personally, I think one of the smartest brands around at the moment from a consumer engagement perspective is Nando's. You know, I think the advertising team and the marketing team that they've got behind those things is absolutely stunning. And I saw I was watching something on the TV, which I don't often do, the other day, and I saw an advert from one of their competitors, and it was one of the most disastrous ads I have ever seen. I mean, it was pathetic. You know, they were talking about digging into a bucket of their fried chicken pieces, and they had people digging holes in the cricket pitches, and they had a little child digging into his nose, and I mean, really, I mean, it was just probably one of the worst ads I've ever seen. And when you're competing against something like Nando's, you've got to look at yourself very, very carefully. So yeah, but I do think the world is switching. I think the world is switching from the adoration of the big brands to very much a recognition of personal brands. And you know, and I think we're going to see that as the millennials start to grow up, and as the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs and whatever they are, and I forget where we go from there. But you know, what's the next one after Gen Z? Is it Gen AA or? I think you're going to see those things changing. I mean, I just think of some of the guys we've been looking into on YouTube for them at you know, in recent times. If you haven't looked at Mr. Beast on YouTube, go and look up Mr. Beast on YouTube. 23-year-old who's worth multiple millions of dollars, is giving money away left, right, and center, has created his own little brand from the age of 16 to 23, and these are multi-millionaires. So yeah, I think it's I think the world is changing, and I think our perception of brands and the value of brands from our generation, with the exception of Thabiso, because he's just a little bit younger than the rest of us, you know, is probably very, very different. And yeah, I think the idea of the dinosaur brand is probably a dying one. So, Trevor, that's why I completely disagree with you. I don't think Coke is worth a cent. I hate the stuff.
And I completely disagree with you. I think the power of the brand is always going to be number one in getting out to the marketplace. So symbols are important.
There you go. And there's the Thabiso's symbol, the yin and the yang. And it's yeah, Ed, you've got to put a castle in that Lego man's hand. You can't just let him stand there empty-handed like that. Right. Okay. So that's brands. We've branded. We have branded our stand on brands. And Lee, anyone? Topic for tomorrow? What is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thursday. Yeah. So any thoughts on topics for tomorrow? Anyone? No. Topic?
I mean, where do we go from here? The one thought I had was, if we just pull this out a little bit, you know, what would your Edward spoke about, you know, his castle lager is. I'm so glad to see you managed to get a castle somewhere, Edward. And that so what would depict your brand? So is there a symbol? Are there some, you know, core keywords? So if you were to define yourself as a brand, what would it look like, sound like? So you willing to do that exercise tomorrow?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so define your brand, your personal brand.
Your personal brand.
Personal brand. Okay. Good. All right. So go out and become personally branded, and we will see what you come up with tomorrow. And Ed, yeah, keep the underpants on. We don't want to see the branding mark. So we. But other than that, we are back on in 20 minutes on UK Wisdom's Chat on the same thing. So if you want to join us in 20 minutes time, we're back on. And then at 3 p.m. South African time, we are back in the USA. And we're hearing Frank Shapiro's story, I think, at 9 o'clock. And we're hearing BJ's story at 3 o'clock. So could be good ones. Join us then if you can. Otherwise, we'll see you in the morning. Go out. Cheers.